Hey, so today we're going to draw this page. And what I mean by that is I've already drawn it, but I'm going to show you how it goes from complete sketching to finished product. So here I'm trying to do a couple of different sketches. This is how I kind of figure out the best pose, the best setup for a page, how it's going to look. This is one I'm going to use. I thought it was kind of cool. What I eventually did is kept the figures here. It's pretty dynamic. It's how I like the pose. I think it has a lot of energy there. Once I get something that I like, what I do is I change the opacity of that layer, or if I'm doing it in real life, what I would do is I'd actually erase all of the actual underlying pencils so that it's really light, then I draw on top of it. So here's the second layer that I'm doing there. So you do the outlines first. I think of it kind of as shapes and then try to figure out where I want to put the shadows. And then from there I start adding details. Kind of do the whole page as an outline, then I do the whole page, add a little bit more detail in each section, and then eventually what I'll do is I'll go section by section and clean it up and finish up the details there. So it's kind of interesting because when I came up with the design of this monster, it's essentially a ghoul, right? So a classic steroided out big old monster that's threatening, kind of dumb, just vicious, can tear through anything. And so in this case, he's almost an unstoppable force. He's essentially bulletproof. If you do read my comic book, you'll see that this is something that's kind of created in the lab, and it's an experiment gone wrong, basically, right? So at the end of the day, our hero KINETIC, she's gotta go and fight this guy, right? What you'll see here, and this is what I mean when I say I go through each part and I clean things up. It takes a long time to be able to do decent foreshadowing when it comes to limbs, because if you look at it individually, it never looks right. So if you just looked at this leg, when you zoomed right into it and you didn't look at anything else, it looks messed up. And so that's what's difficult, because I think a lot of new artists, they can't get over that, so they keep adjusting and adjusting and trying to make it look right. But it'll never look right because it just doesn't look, even if you look at it in real life, a limb that's foreshadowed just doesn't look right. So when you put it in its sum total of its parts, then it does look a little bit better. So here I go. I want to put I like these ears. These are like kind of like Wolverine and his cowl, except it's their ears. So apparently he hears very well, I would think. Shadow consistency is pretty important whenever you do any sort of drawing. This is a real simple one. It's light sources coming from behind and to the right of these two, so that makes these big beautiful shadows on the left side of this picture, and everything's slightly exaggerated with this monster, right? So the jaws dropping all the way down. Initially I wanted to kind of have like these lines of drool that would stick in the teeth, but then because I have that battle ribbon, that metal ribbon jamming through his head, I decided you wouldn't be able to distinguish it. It wouldn't look right. So I am doing the details of the hand. The secret of drawing hands is really just getting the basic shapes down. So what I like to do is just make sure those knuckles are lined up the way actual knuckles are in a hand, and then everything else kind of falls in place. That's what I find the secret is just kind of getting the shape of the not the fingers necessarily, but just the actual hand itself, and then you just add things on, right? And then you put a lot of detail in here. This is a lot of shading. This is just time consuming, right? You just want to put a lot of little shadows. There's some of the spit coming out there as you can imagine if you're a big old monster being having something shoved through your head and you're screaming, there's probably going to be some spit and blood coming out there, right? So this, you can see I kind of struggled in how to make her hands look right here, because I just was kind of playing around with different things. It looks like she was giving us a finger there for a second, but wanted to make something that wasn't just two fists on top of each other, because when you do it, because what it is like that top fist, that's actually a fist does not look like that when it's facing you. It looks cool in the comic, but you can only do it once. What I mean by that is if you put both hands doing that, it would just look goofy. So you put one hand and it looks dynamic, and then you have to do something different with the other hand, right? So this is, all those careful faces. I think that you can actually do a lot of basic stuff and not and essentially screw things up. But the human eye notices faces, so you got to be really careful if you're going to spend a lot of time in any drawing. Spend it on the faces, and then the hands, and then the action, the dynamics of the page itself. So I did her hair. I'm doing the wrong thing here. Is that I do a lot of individual strands. That's what I call the neurocrystal. It's actually going to be popped out of his head, and that's kind of an important part of the story as well. And then these sinewy muscles, right? I do these striations. We wanted to make sure that this guy was kind of just looked like a badass, right? Looks like he's a menacing, evil-looking character. And there you have it. That's kind of it. And then I was considering some dynamic lines to make the action look more intense. I decided to actually put a little bit grayscale in there. I don't like drawing with a lot of grayscale, but I did in this case. I just thought it looked better. And it's basically because I don't do it elsewhere in the book. I feel that this makes this page stand out. That's kind of got this flash of energy coming through the back as she jabs through. This is me lettering by hand on an iPad. So I hand letter. It's not typed. It's not any of this. You'll see me erasing and then trying very carefully not to screw up and write very carefully. And then you'll see here I figured out, why don't I just put the lettering on a different layer, so if I screw up I can just not have an issue with it. So that's it. That's what I did. That's, you can see from beginning to end, a complete page. And hopefully you get something out of this. You get to see a process, and you get to see how it went. Thanks, guys.